In 1609, on winter afternoon, a Chinese porcelain artisan was closely examining his work. This exquisite porcelain plate was presented to Emperor Wan Li of Ming Dynasty for royal court. Meanwhile, in Padua, Italy, a middle-aged man stepped onto his terrace. He was about to use a modified refracting telescope to observe the moon for the first time in human history. He was Galileo. Two seemingly ordinary pieces of glass finally unleashed tremendous power in its air. They become an extension of human vision, from the macro to the micro, giving birth to wave after wave of global revolution. Yet, 2,000 years after ancient China produced little barium glass vessels, porcelain had already pushed glass out of its ecological niche. Thousands of years of porcelain history left China, with artisans most skilled at shaping clay, the most advanced fairing techniques, and the largest customer market. But why didn't these precious wares transform into pieces of glass to help modern China knock open the door to modernization? Next, let's go through three parts: the curse of ascendix, the philosophy of light, and the cost of hegemony, to explore this story of failure caused by perfection. If porcelain represents Chinese international image, then jade was the ultimate spiritual pursuit of the Chinese people, and the earliest glass carved to enter China had become a subordinate to this pursuit. Dragonfly eye beads, the earliest glass products found in China. They flowed in from the West Asian via the Silk Road. Soon, Chinese artisans began imitating them using a local Librem glass formula. Unlike the West's pursuit of glass transparency, Chinese artisans would deliberately add copper or copalt to mimic the sign and blue of gemstones. At the same time, artisans would leave bubbles inside to create a milky, cloudy look, making the glass texture feel closer to real jade. Just 20 years later, glass products would treat it as cheap substitutes for jade and taken into tombs by nobles. This satisfied their worldview of using jade to communicate with heaven and earth, and also satisfied their curiosity for artificial jewelry. At this time, China's Liberium glass completely imitated the popular bronze or jadeware of the air. They had thick walls, contained bubbles, and were opaque. The shapes were generally very small. Why was glass, a material with such high plasticity, only made small vessels in China? The reason lies in one simple action: blowing. Glass blowing technology was invented as early as the Roman period. But have you ever wondered, why can fresh hot glass be blown out so easily without sticking together? The answer lies in viscosity. One reason for a different viscosity between China and Western glass is natural endowment. Modern soda-lime glass is mainly composed of silica sand and natural soda. The natural white beaches along the Mediterranean were the best materials for making glass. Also, because of the arid climate and the lack of rain, sulfate soda deposits remained undisturbed for thousands of years. Thus, merchant ships continuously transported natural soda from Egypt and sand from the Levant to the workshops of the Roman Empire. There, Syrian artisans used metal tube blowing technology to create one glass masterpiece after another. In contrast, the silica sand in China's Long River had a high iron content, protecting glass with a greenish tint. Meanwhile, the cost of mining and transporting high-quality alkali was too high. Furthermore, traditional Chinese porcelain kilns could reach temperatures over 1,300 degrees, higher than the 1,000 degrees needed for low-temperature glass. Liberian glass has a very short nature due to the high heat. Once Liberian glass left the flame and lost a little heat, it would solidify instantly. Liberian glass is extremely brittle, making it very likely to shatter during production. So abandoning glass technology was an extremely rational choice in Chinese history. Natural disadvantages, the spiritual pursuit of jade, and the perfect porcelain production line brought a curse of aesthetics up on glass. Think about it. When you own a perfect porcelain cup, why would you need a glass cup that shatters with hot water? Porcelain had already served all needs for holding things, heat resistance, and beauty. In an era before the concept of science and technology formed, maxing out the porcelain scale points too earlier accidentally chopped down the seedling of optics. The necessity of glass evolution vanished prematurely. This wasn't a policy error by some emperor, nor was it a lack of ability among artisans. It was the optimal solution reached by an agrarian civilization after rational thinking. Since then, the functional aesthetics born from porcelain become one of the best synonyms for Chinese aesthetics. But 8,000 kilometers away in Europe, another aesthetics revolution related to glass was in full swing. In the next chapter, let's move our perspective indoors and look at this story hidden within architectural philosophy, a story of light and shadow. From Romanesque and Baroque architecture, Western architecture used glass over a span of 800 years to tell a story about light and shadow. Under the triple influence of nature, theology, and architectural philosophy, Eastern and Western architecture took completely different paths, and glass becomes the protagonist that left last. Europe's cold civilization zone is locked in the high longitudes of 45 to 55 degrees north. The climate is cold and gloomy, with scarce sunlight. Trapping light and heat become a rigid necessity for buildings. The transparency of glass, its heat-trapping ability, and its rigidity made it the only material humans could choose. China was different. With distinct four seasons, earth and wood become the main materials for ancient China architecture. Huge overhanging eaves served as precise physical filters. They blocked the high-angle scorching sun in summer, but invited the low-angle warm sun in winter. Houses built with complex wooden structures had far lower thermal conductivity than stone buildings. Combined with thin eastern roofs of high thermal inertia, Chinese architecture became a breathing thermostat. Paper windows were light and breathable. In comparison, heavy lead-bearing glass, which couldn't be made in large size, was undoubtedly out of the question. In the 12th century, Gothic architecture successfully used flying buttresses and pointed arches. This evolution solved the problem of Romanesque churches being dark, enclosed, and fortress-like. Heavy stone walls were removed, and huge voids were left open. From then on, glass technology leaped from making bottles and jars to the technical route of making giant panels. Accordingly, how to beautify these giant glass panels became a dual challenge of theology and aesthetics. Medieval scholastic philosophy proposed a core doctrine: light is a direct manifestation of God in the material world. A church was not just a meeting place, but heaven's projection of earth. To create a sense of holiness, the light couldn't be stark, pale, natural light, but had to be filtered into colorful divine light. This led to massive amounts of chemical experiments. Artisans had to end mental exercise like copper and cobalt to control the glass color. The evolution Chinese artisans made over 1,000 years ago to make glass look like jade was finally mastered by Western artisans. History drew a perfect cycle at this time, connecting Eastern and Western technological civilizations. The huge demand for glass driven by religious fervor forced glass manufacturing away from workshop craftsmanship and towards factory-scale production. The progress of civilization was, at this moment, quietly pressed on the fast-forward button. In the mid-19th century, China's feudal dynasty reached the end of its life. The royal family still didn't realize the importance of glass. They added colors and decorations to imported glass to replace the better-performing paper windows. This aesthetic taste, neither Chinese nor Western, was essentially fighting against the transparency of glass, forcibly dragging it back into traditional Chinese aesthetics. Meanwhile, in Britain, with the hosting of the Crystal Palace exhibition in London in 1851, The fully transparent pavilion showed the world the terrifying capacity of the flat glass industry. The absurd window tax was officially abolished the same year. The pent-up glass production capacity was instantly released. Glass windows quickly entered the bedroom of every British commoner. The light of God transformed into the light of civilization. Small pieces of glass were giving wings to technology. On the wide ocean surface, Chinese merchant ships loaded with porcelain were still sailing. However, look around, the once wide ocean now seemed increasingly crowded. In the next chapter, let's turn our view to the ocean and witness how porcelain hegemony under the industrialization represented by modern glass died out. Tea, silk, and porcelain. Ancient China was to play the role of the world's main seller. Thus, a trade hegemony was born. A piece of export porcelain might only sell for a few cents in China, but after being sold overseas via sea routes, the profit margin could only reach 300%. From the 16th to the earlier 19th century, a steady stream of silver mined in Latin America flowed into China through the porcelain trade. China became a true empire of silver. I will dedicate a separate episode to chat about this story. If you are interested, remember to hit subscribe. Thank you so much. Huge demand forced Chinese artisans to make porcelain day and night. Yet, facing massive orders, the porcelain production mode did not undergo a qualitative change. It still relied on piling up the time of countless skilled workers to craft products one by one to a level of perfection in the artisan's mind. A production method that multiplied profits hundreds of times. Using just the manpower became a pattern of past dependence that lasted a millennium. In comparison, glass, with the shipping breakage rate as high as 30%, was clearly not a better trade choice. However, the rulers sitting in their magnificent palace did not know that since the 16th century, the profit margin of European glass trade was already close to that of porcelain. At that time, a high-quality Venetian mercury mirror could be exchanged for an unmatched ship or a mansion in central London. The island of Murano in Venice. To protect glass formulas, laws were even passed to execute artisans who left the island without permission. 300 years later, the wave of the Industrial Revolution swept across Europe. Production lines, represented by virgin glass factories, pushed the cost of flat glass down infinitely. Combined the breakthroughs in shipping technology, West merchants discovered that shipping glass to the Qing dynasty to sell was even more profitable than porcelain. For Chinese porcelain products, the situation was even less optimistic. Aided by various historical factors, German Meissen porcelain achieved a historical breakthrough. This single move broke China's 1,000-year monopoly on porcelain. Soon after, British Westwood porcelain completed industrialization. The Dutch East India Company immediately stopped importing Chinese porcelain and switched to selling Queensware, which was whiter, had a very short shipping distance, and had a breakage rate close to zero. Immediately following that, with breakthroughs in Japanese porcelain technology, Alita-ware, with its more brilliant colors, was continuously shipped to the world from Yimali Port. China completely lost its share in global porcelain trade. By the end of the 19th century, the trade situation reversed abruptly. Glass became a major component of Chinese imports. The Chinese people who valued sturdy and durable products for the first time because of fragile glass understood the concept of daily consumables. Endless repeat purchases caused demand to skyrocket. Massive amounts of silver were once again redistributed around the world through trade. And when the Chinese, realizing this too late, wanted to develop glass themselves, they discovered that between them and the West, there already existed a chasm named industrialization. Only then did the Chinese truly realize that what closed to China alone with the porcelain trade was the door of science named Progress. When navigators used telescopes to measure the Earth, when biologists used microscopes to spy on cells, the wonders of the world through this transparent glass bloomed with infinite brilliance. Meanwhile, China's feudal emperors still sat deep within their palaces, looking through those colorful stained glasses. This scarred and devastated country looked so blurry. They couldn't imagine that only by wiping away those complex and superfluous decorations on the glass could they see clearly that real and cruel world. In 2019, a documentary called American Factory exploded globally and eventually won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature the following year. The Chinese company Fuyao, featured in this documentary, has become the world's largest and most technologically advanced automotive glass supplier. Out of every forecast globally, at least one uses Fuyao glass. Where everyone is discussing the differences between China and the US in industry models, management, and culture. How many people have noticed what a difficult history the Chinese people have walked through for the sake of this small piece of glass? Today's China produces over 16% of the world's flat glass. Its market share of photovoltaic glass exceeds 19%. From relying on Asian goods for a single window Qing dynasty to today, providing transparent spot for global skyscrapers, EV cars, solar farms, and smartphones. This journey has taken China nearly 200 years. When we rejoice over trade monopolies or feel complacent about technological leads, we might as well look at the history of Chinese glass. Perhaps only the flow of technology can enlist the boundaries of civilization. Only by daring to break out of our comfort zone can we achieve greater progress. After all, for any civilization, nothing should be taken for granted.